All right, it looks like it's 3 o'clock, so I will go ahead and get started. Thank you to everybody who joined us this afternoon for the Colorado Alliance for Environmental Education's December webinar focused on tools to support youth career discovery and development. I'm Lisa Edens. I am the program coordinator for CAEE, and I've been with CAEE for about 3.5 years or so. And I've been doing mostly career development work. So I'm really excited to be talking with you this afternoon and sharing some of the cool things that we've developed to help support you all in supporting your youth. Just a couple of housekeeping things before I start. If you have any technical difficulties, please just chat those in. I have a couple of my colleagues helping me monitor the chat box today so they can certainly help with any issues that might come up. And then second, feel free to chat questions throughout the talk today. I'll probably be just holding those until about midway through the presentation and then answering those at that time and then again at the end, just because I can't see the chat box and go through the slides at the same time. So, but please chat those in as you think about them, and we'll definitely address those as soon as we can. So with that, hopefully my slides advance. Uh-oh, of course. They're not. All right, hold on. Let's see. Sorry, I'm experiencing some technical difficulties now. For some reason, I'm not able to advance my slides. So let me stop for just a second. Let me try to share that one more time. All right, hopefully this works this time. Slideshow. All right, great. So just I wanted to start with a brief background about where these tools originated. And they came, if you've been involved with CAE at all in the last few years, you're probably familiar with the Careers in Natural Resources Initiative. This is an initiative that we co-lead the Colorado Youth Corps Association and came about, probably 4 or 5 years ago. Some of the Youth Corps graduates coming out of the program were really struggling to find those entry-level jobs. They had the interest and skills and passion to go into the field of natural resources, but there were all these barriers that were preventing them from actually securing long-term careers in the field. And so that's kind of where the initiative started, as a conversation about that. And it's really grown since then. The first meeting, the first summit was held back in 2012. And at that summit, those participants, which I think are about 60, came up with this vision, which was to work collaboratively to create more pathways to enable all young adults to be educated, prepared, and qualified to enter and maintain professional, sustainable natural resource careers. So I think the key points here, one is to work collaboratively, is because we know that no one organization can do this work alone, that we all need to work together to create these pathways. And then enabling all young adults. So people from all economic classes, minorities, we really wanted to reach out especially to get people that are underrepresented in natural resource careers into the field. So that is our vision for the initiative. Today we have over 260 individuals representing almost 100 organizations that have participated in the initiative in the last few years in one way or the other. So that represents agencies at all levels of government, nonprofits, we've got higher education and K through 12 educators, career influencers like parents, and many, many more. And we've come up with 3 main goals. That first one, which I talked about briefly, is to reduce the barriers that interested young adults face in pursuing a career in natural resources. Other goals include just increasing awareness about careers in general, especially for the younger populations of kids. And then third is to increase access. So of course we can spend hours on the internet and find so many different things, but that makes it sometimes difficult to find the right kinds of things. And so we really wanted to try to increase the access to credible and appropriate information for job seekers. So that's a little bit about the initiative. So the how-to guide for pursuing a career in natural resources came from that goal of reducing the barriers that young people face in getting a job. And so we first re-released this back in spring of 2014, and we just updated it and re-released a second edition this September. And I couldn't believe how many updates there were in just 2 years, how many things have changed, not just website addresses, but entire structures. So it took a little while to do the update, and I hope we don't have to do another one too soon. But in conjunction with that release, we held kind of a kickoff Train the Trainer event in September. And this is where we had about 60 people participate, and it was a full day summit where we really went through the guide in depth. We had a panel of HR specialists from different levels of government and went through a training toolkit that we've developed. And so it was great. We had a great success. And so this webinar today is a super duper condensed version of that, where I'll be going over a few of the things that we highlighted there and giving you some of the resources. In 2017, I just wanted to quickly mention that we have secured some additional funding from the U.S. Forest Service and Bureau of Land Management. We're planning a West Slope training in the fall. So definitely stay tuned for more information on that if you're located there on the West Slope. So the objectives I have over the next hour or so are just, one is basically to get you familiar with the guide and the accompanying activities. You know, the guide, if you clicked on the URL that I sent out yesterday to access the PDF of the guide, you probably saw that it's very large. It's, I think, 120 pages. And we didn't intend it to be read cover to cover. It's really meant as a resource that you can use the table of contents to navigate to the sections that are most applicable to you and your students. But it is kind of daunting to just even open the front cover or click through the pages. And so we found that these trainings are really helpful to get you all as career influencers comfortable with this resources so that you can help get your students and youth and audiences comfortable with it. So what we want your audiences to come away with are learning about the range and diversity of jobs in natural resources, who hires professionals in natural resources, to understand all of the different processes of the local, state, and federal applications that can be so difficult, and then identify where to search for jobs. And I'll talk about this towards the conclusion of the webinar, but my second goal is to just provide you with all the materials you need to give a training. So I'm going to go through these throughout the presentation today, but some of the things that I will email out afterwards are a training outline, the training presentation, the 2 activities I'm going to go over today, and then some evaluation materials. So those are the 2 objectives that I have for today. So as I mentioned, one of the materials that you're going to get is a training outline. And I just wanted to do a screenshot here. This will be in a Word document when you get it, but just to show you what it's going to look like. So we have, along with the PowerPoint presentation that I'm going to give you and show you, this helps you kind of just understand how much time it would take per section and gives you some key talking points to share throughout the presentation. So I just want to make sure you don't have to take a lot of notes today what I'm talking about, because you're going to get all of these materials. So that's why I would just mainly wanted to show you a brief view of the outline here. And now I'm going to jump into the PowerPoint that you're going to receive. And when I give it to you right now, I'm going to kind of step back a little bit and talk a little bit about what you might talk about with your audiences. And so just think about it in that sort of context as I go through it today. But one of the first things we want to talk about with our young adults and youth audiences is why they would want to explore or think about a job in natural resources and the environment. And first is job growth. So when you look on the Bureau of Labor Statistics website and click through a bunch of different environmental jobs, you'll find faster than average employment growth is expected for most of those jobs. So for example, environmental scientists, the job growth is expected to be about 15% over a 10-year time. We don't have great data from right now from the government, but when they did track green jobs data back in 2010 to 2011, they reported that the green jobs grew at a rate 4 times faster than all other sectors combined, which just kind of blows my mind. And I have to keep going back to my source to make sure I'm correct. And again, even though we don't have great data from today, I think we can look around at the news and what we're seeing and know that green jobs are still very strong here in Colorado and across the nation. Now, at the same time, we're experiencing or expected to experience high retirement rates, especially at government. And I think a lot of people have been holding on for the last 10 years or so with the economic up and downs, but a lot of people are ready to retire. I found this statistic that by 2016, which I guess is technically now, more than 1/3 of the federal workforce will be retirement eligible. And then between 2015 and 2018, half of the workforce at Denver Water will be eligible to retire. So this is exciting because there's a lot of job opportunities, but a little scary also because these are certainly jobs that we don't want going unfilled or going filled by unskilled workers. So that's another reason why we want to get the word out about this job availability and how important they are. Next, really emphasizing that you can make a living in this career. Depending on your education and your skills and your experience, there are many different jobs that make over $100,000 annually, but certainly most of the jobs you can support a family in. So I think that's something, a lot of parents think that environmental jobs, you really can't go anywhere. You can't do that long term. So we want to dispel that myth and really make it known that there are many different jobs where you can make a long-term career for this field. Next is making a difference. And I know that probably many of you on the call today, this is why you're in the field. And I know this is why I'm in the field, is because, at the end of my career, I want to look back and know that I did something important with all my time. And so whether that's, introducing a child to fishing, or whether that's protecting your favorite place, or working on clean air policies, whatever that may be, I think that we can connect to people who really feel a drive to make a difference with their lives. Next is having fun. So I put this slide up, even though it's not my idea of fun to be fighting forest fires, but I know a lot of the youth corps and others, it's a very sexy position to be an adrenaline rush to be on the front lines of forest fire. So whether it's fighting forest fires or teaching kids how to fish, or walking trails or interacting with visitors, I think that people in these professions have a lot of fun, and it doesn't feel like work when we go to work every day. So finally, just really emphasizing to people that there's a career for everyone, and I really believe that. And so this is the point where I usually, when I'm talking to audiences, I'll have them even take a few minutes of silent time to just reflect on themselves and their personality, their skills, their passions, and really keep those things in mind as we go through the rest of the presentation, because there's a whole range of careers, and we're hoping that you know, we can connect everyone. We know that not everyone is going to go into a career in natural resources, but I think everybody could find something that connects with them. So now I'm going to go through a few particular resources contained within the guide to help youth connect with a career and understand how to successfully apply for a job. So first, again, is finding a career that's right for them. And what we put together in the guide is a series of fact sheets. We've really tried to break down the field of natural resources into manageable chunks. And so we have, I think, about 7 different fact sheets. This one shows parks and recreation, but we also have water management, land management, fisheries and wildlife, geosciences. I know I'm forgetting a few more. And these certainly are not, this is not comprehensive. We know that environmental jobs really could be included in any and all jobs. They stretch far and wide. But this is, again, just a way to kind of bring it down to a manageable level. So for each fact sheet, we have a little bit about what the field is all about, what a professional in that field generally might do. And then we give some real examples of careers in that field, all the way from entry level to the management. So this is a great way. I know a lot of the youth I talk to, when they think about natural resource careers, their mind immediately goes to a park ranger. But after seeing some of these fact sheets, they realize there's a lot of other things that they could do that might be similar to that. Visitor services, or parks technician, or ranger assistant. And they also kind of better understand where they fit on the spectrum. So I think a lot of young people coming out of college in particular almost overqualify themselves. They think they're qualified for maybe more than they are. So this helps them understand, you know, what education and training they really need to have to be a recreation coordinator or a district manager, for example. If you look maybe 2/3 of the way down the fact sheet, you'll see some resources about how they can get experience and connect to the community. So again, this is just first steps. You know, you can get experience and exposure through a number of different programs. You can volunteer. There's youth employment opportunities. And then I think one that youth often don't tap into enough are professional societies. So there's a host of professional societies that are active in our area that are willing to provide mentorship opportunities. They often have networking events or jobs board. And so they're a great way for people to start making connections if they're interested in this particular field. And then finally, who employs professionals? As we'll talk about a little bit later, all of these agencies are actually very different. So if you are a forester and work for the Bureau of Land Management, that's actually very different than working as a forester for the National Park Service, for example. And so just kind of understanding who might employ those positions is important. So one of the fact sheets talks about all of the jobs that a person can do if they don't love the sciences or don't love being outdoors. And so we know that at all of the natural resources agencies and organizations, there's people that we need in HR, there's people that we need with good communication skills and good writing skills and who are good with computers and love social media and are good with numbers. So again, if you want to work, if a person wants to work for the environment or for the outdoors, they can certainly come in wherever their skills and passions are at. And so that's one of the goals of this fact sheet here. So after the fact sheets, we go into a series of career spotlights. And I think we have about 8 careers spotlighted here. And our goal here was just to really find careers in each of those fields that are in high demand, for one, and then also represent a range and diversity of skills and education levels. So for some of these careers, a person might only need a high school diploma and maybe some experience. And for others, maybe they need even a master's degree or a PhD. But for each of them, we talk a little bit more in depth about the career, what a typical day on the job would be like. And then we go on to talk about, personality traits and specific skills people need for that. So if it's a job, for example, where you're doing a lot of walking or heavy lifting, or maybe you're doing a lot of work independently, that's very different than if you're working in visitor services or customer service where you're interacting with people all day. Then we also talk a little bit about the salary of those types of jobs, and then the job outlook. So that's a great way, again, for people to flip through those careers and see if there's a connection they can make there. Another great resource that we have in the career guide is this natural resource degree program table. And we spend a lot of time going through all the websites for the higher education institutions in Colorado and pulling out all of the degrees that we thought were applicable to natural resources. And there are a ton of them that range anywhere from an occupational certificate all the way through graduate degrees and other categories. And this is great because if someone is really drawn to a career in water quality management, for example, I believe there's 4 higher education institutions in Colorado that offer that. And so they can find where those are at. Similarly, if they live, let's say, on the West Slope and don't really want to move or can't move, they can see which colleges around them offer what types of degrees in natural resources. So this seems like it changes every semester, but these are at least the current ones for now. They usually don't change a whole lot. Okay, so after we familiarize our audiences with the range of careers, I want to talk a little bit about who employs people in natural resource careers. And I touched upon this a little bit earlier, that all agencies are not created equal. We've got several at the federal level, at the state level, and at the local level. And they're all very different. They all have different cultures, slightly different policies. And what we did when we created the first guide was that we went out and we interviewed HR personnel from many of these organizations. And we asked not only about their application processes and information about what would make an applicant successful, which is great. We found a lot of good information from that. But we also asked, what makes your organization unique? What should people really know about it? And for example, the Colorado Department of Public Health and the Environment, they're very academic driven, and they spend a lot of time, at their desks and must read a lot of academic journals. And so that's just the kind of information someone might want to know if they want to pursue work there. We also wanted to highlight specifically the Colorado Department of Agriculture, because I think this is one that's undertapped again by youth. When we met with them, some of the things, if you look onto that last bullet point, they talked about that was unique about the agency, or that they have a strong affiliation with the Cattlemen's Association. So again, someone working there might need to have good people skills and going out to talk with ranchers. They're a highly regulatory agency, but try to work with people first on a cooperative basis. And then they do emphasize and promote education. So if you're an environmental educator, you could work for the Department of Agriculture, and that's maybe not somewhere you thought you could work before. It's also a great stepping stone. They've got a bunch of seasonal positions that are not quite as competitive as some of those at the State Park Service and the federal government. So it's a great way for people to, get their foot in the door, get some experience on their resume with a seasonal job, if they're hoping to maybe go to a different agency or even stay with the Department of Agriculture. But again, I think this is one that people don't often think about when they start their job search. So one of the resources that we have at the very end of the guide is a directory of agencies and field offices. And so this again is a comprehensive list of all of the offices and their locations. I was really blown away at just how many BLM offices there are and Forest Service offices. I feel like I was typing pages upon pages. But just so people know where those offices are, and they could go in, visit those offices, talk with some of the people, and just get an idea of what the feel of the office is and whether that would be a good fit for them. So the guide really does emphasize government careers, and there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that we got a lot of our funding from the government offices, and so and the second reason is because they're pretty concerned about, as I mentioned before, about this possible gap in filling a lot of the jobs that are open. But we also mentioned in the guide that you can pursue a career, obviously, in natural resources and private businesses. So a lot of environmental engineers work at private consulting companies, forestry technicians do as well, landscapers. We've got a huge outdoor industry here in Colorado, obviously, with river guides and outfitters. So there's certainly a lot of opportunities to work for private businesses as well. This current guide just doesn't really address that as much, but we're hoping that we can do that, you know, with some additional funding in future guides. Also, working at a nonprofit organization, we have to mention a few of the nonprofits, or just state that there are so many nonprofits here in Colorado, from the national level down to the local level, doing anything from wildlife to preserving land to water or working with kids. So again, there's so many opportunities for people to find a good fit in the field. And last, people can be their own boss. So there's a ton of opportunities to be an entrepreneur. And I guess the advice that we would give here would be, you know, to find something that's lacking, to really understand the field and find something, you know, whether it's an area of the city that's lacking a farmer's market, and to get that started, or to find that, you know, a lot of events could be planned with better sustainability in mind. So I have several friends and colleagues that have gone on to do their own businesses and have been really successful in that realm as well. Okay, so the next section is really talking all about how to get hired. So once we've kind of sparked some career ideas and some agency options, chapters 3 and 4 of the guide talk a lot about the search and apply for, or searching and applying for positions. And if I could see you all right now, I would ask you to raise your hand and tell me if you've used USA Jobs before, and if you found it easy or frustrating. I have used USA Jobs on a few different occasions, and it is very challenging. I have to say that it's a nice website because it's, you know, kind of a one-stop shop where all government jobs are posted. But that also means that there's a lot of jobs posted every day, sometimes as many as 5,000 or 10,000 jobs posted daily. So a challenge becomes, how do you search and find the right jobs that really speak to you? And so in chapter 3, we talk all about USA Jobs and navigating that process and illuminating those mysteries. So one is just creating an account and searching for positions. So you know, we talk a little bit about using the advanced search function and give some tips about what keywords to use, how to search by occupational series, some issues that you might find by searching for department or agency, which is how I used to do it. But I didn't realize that a lot of agencies I might not think of, for example, the Department of Defense, they hire biologists and other natural resource professionals as well. And so just being cognizant of that when you're doing your advanced search. And then also just the power of saving the search and setting it to email you notifications when new jobs become available. Because some of these jobs close within as little as 5 days if they receive a certain number of job applications. And so You don't want to miss out on any potential jobs, and so this is a great feature of the site. Next, we talk about understanding the position listing in USA Jobs. Because it's a federal government website, they tend to use their own language and codes. And we spend pages and pages in the guide breaking down all of this information. For example, the series and grade. What does a GS-0457-0505 mean? What is a promotion potential, and what does 09 mean? So we go through a lot of that in the guide. And again, just giving them an idea of what a job overview might look like and the qualification requirements of a job, with, again, because it's very different than a job position listing that you would see for the private industry or for nonprofit work. Next is how to apply for a job. So there's 3 main steps when applying through the USA Jobs system that we want to let young people know about. One is the federal resume. And I think a lot of us grew up thinking, oh, a resume's got to just be 1 page or 2 pages, which is true for private and nonprofits. But federal resumes are usually not any less than, I would say, 4 or 5 pages, and can be as many as 15 to 20 pages, depending on how long you've been in the field. And you really need to address each of those qualifications in detail, and that's why they can get so long. Second is supporting documents. So people really need to be aware that they need to have their college transcripts available and ready to go, a cover letter. If they're going to claim veteran status, they need to provide that proof of military services. So they need to have that kind of all ready to go in case that perfect job comes available. And then third, the most dubious, I think, and the hardest part of USA Jobs is this occupational questionnaire. This is a questionnaire for most jobs that makes you self-rate yourself on a number of the qualifications. For example, it may say, on a scale of 1 to 5, novice to expert, rate yourself on radio telemetry skills. And so what you want to do here is you want to, be honest, but give yourself as much credit as possible, but really making that link back to your resume. So if you say, I'm an expert in radio telemetry, you better say a lot about radio telemetry in your resume, or those are the types of things that can get your resume rejected and in the reject pile, so to speak. So that's what we really want to try to avoid with this guide, is we don't want people thrown out for technicalities because they don't understand the process of USA Jobs. So that's the importance of this section of the guide. Also, we wanted to highlight that the federal job hiring timeline is also very different than others. I think they've gotten to an 80-day hiring rule, meaning that they want to post from the time of posting the job announcement to filling the job. They hope that they can do it within 80 days. And in most cases, a person's application is going to go to a database and through evaluative software. And so again, making it clear, they need to use specific keywords from those job announcements in their resumes, or else they could be rejected. So again, just illuminating some of the pathways that their applications might take, we think is important to understand the process. And then finally, how to stand out and be a successful candidate. So these are things, again, those nuggets of information that we learned when talking to the HR professionals. They told us it's really important that we don't apply for 50 jobs, that you really want to put your effort and energy into those 2 or 3 jobs that you're really qualified for, and that you can put in the time and energy to tailor your resume to those job openings. There's also a great feature on USA Jobs called the Resume Builder, which we recommend. Instead of submitting a Word document or a PDF resume, you have to do a lot of cut and pasting, but it asks you questions like how many days a week did you work in this job, or how many hours a week, and how many weeks per year? And that's specific information, again, that USA Jobs is looking for that you probably don't have on a regular resume, and that could get your resume rejected if you don't have that information there. The occupational questionnaire I mentioned before, giving yourself a lot of credit, but remaining honest. And then it does have some pages on networking, because I think a lot of people think, oh, the federal government, this database, it's not so important to network, but it really is. Stopping into those offices, engaging in those professional societies. All of those can help you in your job pathway, in your career pathway. All right. Well, I'm going to take a brief breather there and see if I can pull up the chat and see if there's any questions. If you have any questions up to this point, please chat them in. I'll give maybe just a quick minute. I don't see anything at the moment. So I'll just give folks a couple seconds, and again, I'll be answering some more at the end. I'll have some time at the end, so. Okay, well, I will keep going, but chat those in if they come up in your head in the meantime. So what I've really briefly just given you is the PowerPoint presentation that you'll have available to use with your youth, and we encourage you to use it in any way or shape or form that and edit it if it fits you better, then that is great. We've found in the past that the guide is best delivered, I guess, to youth. The information is best delivered through both the PowerPoint presentation and an activity where they can really dive into the guide. Because again, as I mentioned before, it can be really daunting to just crack the cover of the guide. And so we want the youth and our audiences to have a chance to flip through the guide and to see firsthand some of the information that's contained in there. And so hopefully this advances. Because like every time I pull up the chat, I'm going to have to reshare. So hold on, bear with me for 1 second. Uh-oh, let's see if I can get it there. All right. All right, there we go. So one of the activities that we've developed and that you'll get attached to the email following the webinar is a career guide scavenger hunt for your participants. And so for all the activities, what we have is facilitator summary and instructions, which goes over a summary of the activity. The goals for this activity in particular are for people to be able to identify key pieces of information in the guide. I mean, really our goal is just for them to get comfortable with some of the information that's in the guide. Depending on the time that you have and your number of participants, this activity can be about 10 minutes or up to 30 minutes. The PowerPoint by itself is about 45 minutes. So the PowerPoint with this activity is a great hour-long activity that you can do pretty easily with youth during a course or a section or an after-school program. It can really be modified to fit any audience size. I think we've done it with audiences as large as about, well, I guess we did it with the summit audience of 60. But it really works best, I would say, between 5 and 20 participants. And something I forgot to mention earlier is a lot of these materials that we've created are for job seekers ages 18 to 24. But certainly, I think some of just the, what types of careers are right for you and who employs can be appropriate for younger groups, and certainly all of this can be appropriate for older groups. But that, just to let you know, that's the age range that we were targeting when we put together these materials. It talks a little bit about what materials you're going to need to bring. So in this case, the participant worksheet and either hard copy or online copies of the guide. and then give some instructions. So I'll just show you what the participant worksheet looks like here. So yeah, we have 7 sections of about 2 questions each. So if you have a very small audience, you might think about each person taking 1 section, or each group of 2 to 3 people taking a section. In that case, they probably just need about 10 minutes to look through the career guide and come up with answers to these questions, and then you could have them report back to one another on what they found. And I put page numbers because, again, I don't want them searching through 120 pages. That's not our intention here. It's really to get them familiar with the content, not to send them on a wild goose chase. So for example, this section asks them to list the 10 different job types that a person might encounter as they progress through their career. So we talk about in chapter 2 about volunteering and job shadowing and internships and part-time positions and seasonal positions. So those are the kinds of information that we want them to read through with that. Question number 2, asking about the 7 different fields. Again, this is talking specifically related to those fact sheets and having them look through those and really diving into those example jobs and finding some that look like they interest them, and so on. And so you can have your participants each take, or group of participants each take 1 section, or you can, if you have longer time, 30 minutes, or want them to go more in depth, you can have them do all of the sections on their own. And then a great way to report out on that is just, what's something really exciting that you found that you didn't know before? Or what's something that you found that you want to share with everybody else about what you found? And so we've found that this is a really good way for people to start to really understand the power of the material that's contained in the career guide. Okay, so that's one of the activities. The second activity I wanted to talk about and provide you all today is about special programs. And especially for the federal government, they are really trying hard to get youth and young adults working in the federal government. And also minorities and women and veterans and people with disabilities. Those are other huge groups of people that they really want to attract. I think the government is the largest employer by far of veterans and people with disabilities. So they make it a little bit easier for these groups to get jobs with the government. There's also a lot of special programs that that are beyond the federal government. And so in the career guide, I think we spend about 10 pages talking about all of these special programs. And so we've come up with this activity, again, because it can be a little challenging to just sit down and read 10 pages. But we've come up with a special programs match activity. We want the goal to be for participants to be able to identify at least 4 special programs and see what they qualify for. There's a great program, if you're not familiar with it, called the Pathways Program, which I wish they had around when I was graduating, because it's a great way for recent graduates or current young people and undergraduate, and I believe even high school, to get their foot in the door with the federal government. So this activity takes a little longer, 20 to 30 minutes. Again, people can do it individually or be grouped depending on the size of your audience. So what the activity is about is we've come up with 5 different profiles, and I only have 2.5 really listed here. But for each profile, we say what the age, what your age is, what your race and ethnicity is, your gender, your education level, disabilities, are you a veteran? And then, based on that profile, look through those 10 pages of special programs and decide which ones you're eligible for, and how those programs help you get a job. So in the case of veterans, it might be that they can, they either get additional points added on to their database score, or they can apply for jobs that maybe aren't open to other people. Young people, again, there's a lot of jobs that are open just to certain age groups. And so our goal, again, for the activity is really for people to understand that they might qualify for these special programs that might help them get started in a federal job or in just a career in general in the natural resources. So those are the two activities I'm going to pass along. So just to kind of wrap things up, materials I'm going to send out via email are the guide URL. Again, be patient when it loads because it's, I believe, a 26 megabyte file there. I'm also going to send you a link to the guide presentation, which is PowerPoint, but I had to upload it into a Google Drive just because, again, that was a fairly large file. We also have the presentation in a Prezi format, which we found is, I guess, hipper with the youth these days. So feel free to use either and make a copy of the presentations and modify them if you need to. I'm also going to send the outline. So again, you know some talking points, and you've heard me, give it here today. So hopefully it will be easier when you talk with your youth. And then the guide activities, the scavenger hunt and special programs match. The training evaluation is something that we created to try to standardize the evaluation of the trainings happening. So it would be great at the end of next year to be able to collect all of the evaluations from the various trainings and be able to analyze those collectively and come up with some great numbers that we could share with everybody. And so the evaluation is not only a great thing that you can use for your training to make sure that you're doing a good job and that the students and the youth and your audiences are getting good information from the training, but also if you can email them or send them to me, I would love to have them as a way to collect them and analyze them collectively. Similarly, I'm going to send a Google form link to help track and report all the trainings happening in Colorado. So again, we held the big summit in September on this webinar, and we're hoping to hold one again, the West Slope training next year. And so hopefully by the end of 2017, we'll have a whole network of trainers. And this is just a very short, quick form that asks, what day did you do the training? Who did you do the training to? And how many people were there? I think there's only 3 or 4 questions on there. Again, just so at the end of the year, we can say, oh, well, we had, 150 trainers. We trained 5,000 students. So those are the reasons that we're asking for that information. And then lastly, I'll just be sending a SurveyMonkey link so that you guys can give me some feedback on my performance here in the webinar, so we can make sure we keep these valuable and useful for you all. And so finally, our whole goal is just to make this guide something that doesn't sit on a shelf. We spent a lot of time and effort on it. We think it's got some really great materials in it, so we want it to be used. So we just really encourage you to use it in any way that you can, to use it with the activities. Everything is meant to be very flexible and adaptable. So again, if you just have 45 minutes, you could do the PowerPoint presentation for your youth. If you've got 2 hours, you could do the PowerPoint presentation, a long version of the career scavenger hunt and the special programs match. So it's really all about kind of adapting to your audiences and to your needs, and then to just tell us about it. So we're just releasing all of this information, and so we've tried to make it the best that it possibly can, but we know it's not perfect. So if you use it and you have some feedback, we'd love to hear that, good or bad. We just want to continually make improvements to help support you all out in the field. So yeah, I think that's all I have. Let me see if I can pull up the chat and see. Oh wow, there's a long question. Okay, going to try to read this question. And so I will just read it out loud. As you know, I'm quite interested in expanding the idea of natural resource careers to include all careers. In one sense, this could be seen as diluting the strength of things like this handbook, but there's a growing list of other things that are considered a natural resource career within the guidebook. Can we envision finding a career for everyone through the lens of each person asking how they could make a difference? So yeah, I think that's definitely a great way of thinking about these careers. As you know, a natural resource career goes way beyond what we have here in the career guide, and it could stretch to include every career that is out there. And so that's a great way when you're talking about, back on the slides where we're talking about there is a career for everyone, maybe reaching out to each person and seeing how they think they can make a difference in the environment and sustainability through, you know, whether they want to be a nurse or a teacher. All of those different careers really have importance in the environment and sustainability. And so I think that's a great point that this person has made on the chat, is just to take it a little bit further than what we have in what we're defining as natural resource careers. Great. Any other questions? I know we're a little early, which is never a bad thing, but I just want to make sure that I have time to answer everybody's questions. You go give it a couple more seconds here. And feel free, if you think of something later on, to email me, or if you decide to do a training and need some additional guidance beforehand, or have feedback afterwards. Again, we'd love to hear from you. And so, yeah, I guess if there's no other questions, we'll wrap up a little bit early. And I will get you these materials along with a recording of the webinar here in the next couple days. And I just wish you all happy holidays, and thank you again for joining us this afternoon.